Hey, welcome back to Michael Reality Recap, your daily dose of reality TV chaos. I'm Michael, and if you are new here, buckle up because we do not hold back on this channel. We give you the truth, the tea, and all the messiness in between. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss a single recap. Because these reality TV folks, they stay giving me content. We are deep in it with Lisa and Daniel. And if you thought last week was a lot, you had no idea what was coming. Now, quick recap for anyone who is somehow joining us for the first time. Lisa is an American woman who flew all the way to Nigeria to be with a man named Daniel. Daniel's family has not exactly rolled out the welcome mat. In fact, they've been rolling out a very different kind of carpet, one made entirely of objections, ceremonies, and demands for cash. Lisa has been forced to go hat in hand to Daniel's uncle, then the chief, then the uncle again, and now, she has to stand before an actual high priest and beg Daniel's ancestors for forgiveness. But here's the twist that makes this whole thing extra spicy. Even if she does everything right, even if she shows up with everything the priest asks for, he might still turn around and tell her she's beyond saving. That the ancestors looked at her track record and said, no, thank you. We don't want that one. So let's get into it because this episode has everything: livestock, liquor, spiritual threats, and a goat that somehow ends up being the hero of the story. We pick things up with Lisa and Daniel making their way through a local market. And why are they going shopping, you ask? Because the high priest, the literal mouthpiece of the gods, has dispatched a shopping list through Daniel's uncle ahead of their meeting. Let me just sit with that for a moment. The oracle of the ancestors apparently communicates his needs in the form of a pre-visit checklist, which, efficient. I respect the system's thinking. So what does the divine shopping list include? 2 yams, 1 female goat, and cash. Real, physical, human cash in Nigerian naira. And I need to be crystal clear about something, that the yams, the goat, and the money, that is just the entry fee. That buys you a seat at the table. The actual cleansing ritual, that's a completely separate charge. You're essentially paying a cover to get into the club, and then you're buying your own drinks once you're inside. Now there is one genuinely comforting piece of information buried in all of this. When Lisa asks what exactly is going to happen to the goat, Daniel explains that back in the day, they used to slaughter it. But that tradition has apparently evolved. These days, the goat lives. It gives milk. It nourishes the village. The goat survives. In a story with very few winners, the goat is collecting a W. I want everyone to remember that. Now, about these yams. Lisa is a reasonable person. By the standards of someone who flew to Nigeria for this relationship anyway. And she wants to understand the symbolism. What do 2 yams represent? What is the spiritual significance? Daniel's answer? The ancestors want them. He doesn't know why. That's just the vibe. 2 yams, no explanation, requested by deceased relatives via a man in a robe. Okay, I'll allow it. But personally, my running theory is that the high priest had dinner plans. 2 yams is an extremely specific quantity to request from the spirit realm. And I think somebody just wanted to eat well tonight. But Maybe I'm cynical. You can decide for yourself. They find a yam seller. And this is where things take a turn because Daniel, who is supposed to be Lisa's guide and advocate through this whole experience, goes ahead and pays basically whatever the seller is asking, barely haggles, doesn't even seem bothered. And Lisa? Lisa is losing her mind. She tells us in her confessional that Daniel is spending her money like it's flowing water and that she thinks she got ripped off. She calls him a bad negotiator. And look, on paper, that seems fair, right? Like, yeah, fight for a better price. I get it. But here is what I keep coming back to. This man, who reportedly struggles to negotiate the price of root vegetables, has somehow engineered a situation where an American woman is on a different continent, buying goats and yams and paying priests, all in service of getting his paperwork together for a move to the United States. You want to call that bad negotiating? That is one of the most effective long game power moves I have ever witnessed. He didn't need to haggle on the yams. He won years ago. When they get to the goat market, though, Lisa decides she is done being a passive participant. She steps up. She is going to handle this herself. And honestly, good for her. She negotiates. She pushes back. She gets the price down to 70,000 naira and secures them one small, very confused female goat. Now, Lisa has already mentioned more than once that she is in debt. That money is genuinely tight. This trip has already stretched her budget, and nothing about any of this was planned or budgeted for. Buying ceremonial livestock was not a line item in her vacation spending. But she does it, because at this point, what is she going to do? She's already here. She's already done the uncle visits and the chief meeting and all the rest of it. The sunk cost alone is enough to keep a person moving forward even when logic would tell them to stop. And there is still one truly terrifying detail hanging over all of this. Even after she shows up with the goat and the yams and the cash, the priest might still say no. He might look at everything she's done and decide she is not forgivable. She tells us, if he decides she can't be cleansed, then she loses Daniel forever. And look, I have thoughts about whether losing Daniel would actually be a loss, but that is a conversation for a different video. Okay, so it's time. Time to meet the high priest. And I need you to understand the scene they walk into, because it is something. The environment is deeply intentional. Traditional setting, ceremonial layout, everything carefully arranged to communicate authority and power. And then the priest himself, he is already vocalizing loudly before they even fully enter the space. The little goat is scared. It is audibly scared. Lisa is scared. She looks like she is internally calculating the cost of a one-way flight home. Everything about the experience, the sounds, the atmosphere, the way it's structured, has been calibrated to destabilize you, to make you feel small, to make you feel like you need whatever this man is offering. And you have to respect the craft of it, honestly, even if you don't respect the application. Then the priest calls for silence. He needs to communicate with the oracle. And what does that process look like? He produces a bottle. Based on what I could find, it appears to be Siemens Schnapps, a very high proof drink. He takes a shot, and then he spits it all over everything, misting the room, like a spiritual humidifier. Lisa, watching this unfold, says in her confessional, I know this is supposed to cleanse me, but I swear, I feel like I'm about to be cursed. Lisa, I hear you. That was my read too. Now here's the moment that should give everyone pause. After consulting the oracle who, it must be said, communicates exclusively through a priest who was just briefed by Daniel's uncle, the priest announces that both of them need cleansing. But then he narrows it. The oracle is pointing specifically at Lisa. She is the one carrying the weight of these transgressions. Lisa is genuinely amazed. She says something like, he just threw some shells, and somehow he already knew why we were here. He knew before you stepped foot in that building. The uncle made a phone call, the shells a presentation. But sure, definitely the shells. Now they have to lay out Lisa's full history for the priest. The 21-year relationship with a woman, the 5 previous marriages, and the detail that she is still, technically, legally married to her most recent wife. 5 marriages, 2 decades with a woman, still wed, in front of the ancestors. The priest's response builds on a theme we have seen developing across this entire storyline. Previously, Lisa has been described as an abomination, as abhorrent. Now the priest calls her situation a sacrilege. We are working through the thesaurus of disapproval, one entry at a time. At this rate, by the season finale, they're going to need a dictionary of biblical proportions. But then, and here is where the miracle arrives, this same priest, this man who just cataloged her sins with evident horror, says he can help her. She is in luck, because standing right in front of her just happens to be the one human being on the planet with a direct line to the gods who can authorize her forgiveness. What timing! What extraordinary fortune! He can cleanse her, but he issues a warning. If she makes a single misstep during the ritual, the gods will refuse. And if they refuse today, they will never grant it. She will be carrying these sins permanently. And then, right on cue, the gods express a need for payment. Cash, significant cash, before anything can begin. Now here is where Daniel's whole mask slips just a little. Because this is the same man who was tossing Lisa's money around at the yam stall without a second thought. But now that the money is going to the priest, now that it won't be filtering back through any channel connected to him, Daniel is suddenly very hesitant, very deliberate, very careful about how much he pulls out of his pocket. Because the scammer is watching himself get scammed, and he feels it with every note he peels off. He knows that money going to the priest is money that doesn't come back to him. It is a direct threat to the financial ecosystem he has built. But Lisa is not hesitating at all. Lisa tells Daniel to empty his pockets entirely. Give the gods everything. She is fully committed to this moment, and she will not be stopped. And the cash is accepted. The ancestors, it seems, are satisfied with the amount. For now. The ritual can now properly begin, but first, the yams and the goat need to be physically present. So they bring everything forward, and the priest now has his full collection of offerings. Then he does something unexpected. He hands Lisa and Daniel each a small carved statue. One represents her. One represents him. And he begins to administer a vow. From this moment forward, Daniel is the only person in Lisa's life. No man, no woman, only Daniel, forever. And Lisa repeats it back, word for word, and then she kisses the statue. And just like that, with a vow and a ceremonial kiss, this woman is spiritually, ritually, and permanently locked in. She made a promise to the ancestors in front of a priest, sealed with a kiss. If she leaves Daniel, if she even wavers, the gods will know because she just made it their business. I want you to appreciate what just happened. This relationship, which was hanging by a thread, just got fortified by ancient contract law. Lisa starts crying, full emotional release. Everything she has been holding through this entire experience is coming out. And honestly, that part is understandable. Whatever you think about the situation, this woman has been through something. But the priest is not done. He looks at her directly and asks, "After this cleansing today, will you mess up again?" And Lisa says no. And he leans in and says, "This is a covenant between you and the oracle. If you go back on it, they will come after you. They will come after you." Now, for most of us watching at home, that reads as theater, a dramatic closing statement. But for someone in Lisa's emotional state, someone who has just gone through this entire experience with full sincerity, that is a terrifying thing to absorb. It is not just a warning, it is a boundary set by forces she can't argue with, negotiate with, or appeal to. Whether you believe any of this spiritually or not, functionally, it accomplishes one very specific thing. It makes leaving feel dangerous. It ties her to Daniel, not just emotionally, but cosmically. She didn't just promise him, she promised his ancestors in a ceremony with a goat present. For the final act, the priest instructs them to remove the wrapping from the goat. And that's it. Ceremony over. Lisa is forgiven. He tells her to embrace her partner. She asks, stunned, "Am I actually clean?" And he confirms it. "You are cleansed from today." Final instructions. Exit walking backwards. Go in peace. They walk out backwards with the goat into the sunlight. Lisa is cleansed. Outside, Lisa is overwhelmed. She says she doesn't entirely understand what just happened in there, but she knows she came out the other side of it. And if the outcome is that she and Daniel are now accepted, that's all she needed. And in a very real way, I understand that. When you have invested this much time, this much money, this much emotional energy, this much of your life into something, the idea of walking away from it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like failure. The sunk cost is real. It is heavy. And for a lot of people, forward is the only direction that feels possible anymore. Daniel, for his part, is celebrating. All the warmth and affection that disappeared when things got complicated is suddenly back in full force. He loves her. Everything is good. Their future is bright. And why wouldn't he feel that way? The green card plan survived. After everything, all the family drama, all the cleansing negotiations, all the aunt visits and priest ceremonies, the path is clear again. And then, because we have to end this story somewhere, Daniel turns to Lisa and asks if they can have sex. And Lisa says yes. And you know what? That is somehow the most logical thing that has happened this entire episode. So where does this leave us? Lisa flew to Nigeria carrying her baggage, all 5 marriages worth of it, and she is leaving spiritually absolved, ritually committed, and now engaged to a man who, it should be noted, she is still technically not legally free to marry. But details. We are not going to let paperwork dim this moment. The ancestors got their cash, their yams, and a milk producing female goat. Daniel gets to keep his American dream alive, and Lisa gets to keep the story she has chosen, that this man loves her, that all of this was worth it, that the goat was a turning point. And honestly, if you are from Nigeria, I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments section. Is what we saw today rooted in actual tradition? Is there real cultural context here that the show didn't give us? Or is Lisa being taken on a very creative, very expensive ride? I want to know. Drop it down below because this is a community and I want us to learn together. And if today's video hit different, if you found yourself equal parts horrified and riveted, which I think is the appropriate response, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you are not already part of the family. And share this with somebody who needs a little chaos in their week. I appreciate every single one of you. Real talk. Peace. See y'all soon.